You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 547.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoors Station. This is a continuation of the recycled 2006 10-part TGO Challenge series, which for some reason is missing from the current listing. Sadly, certain voices you hear, such as Andy Howell, Steve Perry and a few others, are no longer with us. 2006 seems like a long time ago now. However, although equipment that people use may have changed, the spirit, the emotion and the adventure the challenge represents will always remain the same. So for those who like long-distance trail diaries, enjoy.
Switch on your wireless anytime, day or night, and you're bound to hear...
Hi, I'm Lorraine McCall and you're listening to Podcast Bob on his long trek across Scotland.
Brace yourself!
Backpackinglight.co.uk,
The UK's first outdoor podcasting show.
minimum rate,
Maximum fun.
Hello and welcome to this special Backpacking Light podcast 10-part series recorded as part of the 2006 TGO Challenge, sponsored by the Great Outdoors magazine and Berghaus. For those of you who don't know, the TGO Challenge is an organised walk which takes place in May of each year from the west coast to the east coast of Scotland, which is approximately 200 miles. Set up in 1980, the framework and principle is totally unique. It isn't a race or a competition of any kind. The object is to foster good fellowship among walkers within the framework of a challenging expedition. The start consists of 12 sign-out locations on the west coast, from Torridon in the north down to Ardrishaig in the south, and each challenger, solo or group, makes their way via a high route, low route or mixture of the two across Scotland to finish anywhere between Arbroath and Fraserburgh on the east coast. There's a set 2-week window to do this in, and each participant submits their route for inspection prior to departure for safety and advice reasons. The places, however, are limited to 300, and details about the event, if you're interested, and entry forms and past diaries can be found in the October issue of TGO magazine. Each participant makes the challenge as easy or as hard as they wish. The extremes can be a solitary, remote route, sometimes not seeing another person for days on end, or a route which takes in the many social events, perhaps using established accommodation all the way. Most people do a mixture of the two in different forms. This year, I undertook the crossing with my wife Rose, from Lochailort to Dunatar Castle. As we went, I recorded this audio diary to try and capture the atmosphere and to share our experience and those of the many people we met en route. The 2006 TGO Challenge, Part 8. Wednesday the 24th, we emerge from the Fetteresso Forest to meet up with Shirley at lunchtime in the pub at Drumlithie. Then the 6 of us walk slowly out of the rural blissful peace into the mad urban world, at one stage taking our lives into our hands as we go alongside the A90. We cross a few fields from where we could actually see the sea. The final day was 30 kilometres, an ascent of 543 metres and a descent of 720.
Well, 200 miles and we're almost there. We're almost at Dunatar Castle, Stonehaven. I've had quite a good day today. We camped below Charbothy and then went through half the Fetteresso Forest, went down to Glen Burvey, across to Drumlithie, where we found a pub, and a couple of challengers had just beat us there, and the pub doesn't normally open until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, should anybody be listening, but it did for the 2 challengers who'd booked in, thankfully, and and the rest of us joined them. So there's 6 of us now that have been fueled by a couple of Scots pies, a few ales, heading across sort of, mainly through the roads, cross country, slightly up the A90, across to, where are we? Lampool, sort of zigzagging up the paths, and we've just hit the A92, or the road that runs parallel to the A92, to Dunatar, which is about 1k and a bit away. And there's Steve and Lorraine, Shirley, Lee, Rose and myself. The day is probably the best day we've had all trip, isn't it? The sky is relatively blue, there are a few clouds in it, there's sunshine. We've taken all our wet weather gear off, and it stayed off that way for the last hour or so. And we should be there very soon. It's weird, you know, that you can see across the land there to the sea, and the sea's looking a beautiful blue, as it does on a sunny day. And as we get closer to urbanisation, the nerves start kicking in about where can you go and where can't you go. It seems so much easier on a mountain. You know exactly where you are and where you're going, and there's no restrictions. And as soon as you come back to sort of the urbanisation, the edges of town, you start wondering about what you can do and what you can't do. Especially being from England, where the right to roam is slightly different than Scotland. But as you can hear, we're walking parallel to the Stonehaven bypass at the moment, actually, but we're going in the right direction. A line of 6 solitary figures making their way with a certain amount of joy in their hearts towards the sea. All of us, with our aches and pains at this moment in time, vastly reduced, with the idea that we're going to complete this very, very shortly. Even though we didn't plan to complete it till tomorrow, I think the loose plan at the moment is to get down to Dunatar Castle and perhaps camp up there tonight and enjoy the spectacle of a good sunrise tomorrow as we successfully achieve our goal. Oh no, we're crossing the fence now and we're going down the road. Group decision. I'll give you some more information in a minute. Well, we climbed the final fence and we're now looking down into the rocks. Looks like the tide's out, and Dunatar Castle. A very sunny, pleasant spring evening, probably one of the best we've had in 2 weeks. The other guys have just gone ahead of me. They're down towards the castle. You can hear the seagulls. There's a bit of a breeze, but not as cold as normal. On a little hillock on the other side of the bay, looks like somebody's put up a tent, which we're guessing is one of our crew, but we're not too sure. And everybody's pacing around looking as if they're looking for a pitch overlooking the castle by the looks of it. But yeah, very interesting evening, cracking evening, and we're finally here. What can I say? What are the emotions like? The emotions are, well, what have I done for the last 2 weeks? I can't quite remember. It seems so long in many ways and so short in others. It's such a beautiful view looking around this bay. For those who've been to Dunatar Castle, you'll know what it's like. It's sort of stuck out on the promontory, and there's some steep cliffs all around, and we're on the top of one of them. Looks like everybody's getting their tents out. Right, well, we'll fill you in a bit later on, but we're here and the mood is fairly light. The question is, where are we going to pitch tonight, I think? Right, it's finally recording. I'm going to go round and get the random comments from our mixed poll of challengers who have finished, starting with Lorraine. Lorraine, how are you feeling at this very moment?
I don't know.
That's our comment from Lorraine. And over to Steve.
hungry and ready for a drink.
Over to Lee.
I've just reached the East Coast. I've not got time for this.
Shirley, how are we feeling?
Very well, thanks. I'm better now that I'm lighting a cigarette.
And Rosie.
Relieved and knackered.
Well, there you are. That's what it's like to finish the 2006 TGO challenge. A range of assorted emotions, all heading towards the same thing. A good night's kip, a bar and a bag of chips, probably.
And that is exactly what we did. We all sat there, shell-shocked for a while, reflecting on the previous 2 weeks, before heading around the coast, past Caburn and his cliffside tent, into Stonehaven and to the very well-appointed campsite. Exhausted though we were, an excellent bag of fish and chips followed, which was washed down by a couple of drinks, before a very deep and restful sleep.
There you can hear in the background the urbanisation of a Stonehaven campsite. They're repairing the wall defences at the moment, which started at 7 o'clock this morning and woke us all with a start, although we were probably pretty well used to being awake at 7 anyway. Everybody's now slobbing out in their tents and just recovering, letting their aches and pains float away in this glorious morning sunshine. It's absolutely fabulous this morning. A warm sunshine, a slight breeze, the sort of campsite morning you'd love to have had any time over the last 2 weeks but never did. So we're all just sort of relaxing and using the showers and just sitting down and reading papers and making brews and reflecting on the last 2 weeks. We went out for a nice fish supper last night and then popped down for a couple of bevies, and strangely we all sat round our pints of beer or drinks just sort of staring at them in silent contemplation of our achievement and our state of exhaustion. We were all very, very tired, I have to say. It's amazing how tired you can feel. There you go, that's the 7 o'clock early morning call. Yes, I mean, there's a couple of other challengers here on the site, and they're all packing up, obviously ready to go into Montrose fairly early because it's only 8:30 now. We're just going to slob out for the rest of the day, I think, and then saunter down there this afternoon into Control, pick up our certificates, any parcels we've got waiting for us, and make our way to the guest house, ready for the evening's celebrations.
After a relaxing morning, we caught the bus, which meandered its way to Montrose, picking up a handful of challengers at each bus stop. We finally arrived in Control, the room reserved for the organising team, to sign off, collect our t-shirt and badge before heading out to our accommodation to scrub up and prepare for the night ahead, all of us wearing with pride our only clean t-shirt.
Hi, thank you, Roger. Yes.
In the bar, prior to the meal, I asked Alison Ashton what impression the challenge had made on her this year.
Well, it's always great scenery and it's always changeable weather, but this year has really been a sociable challenge for me. I've met up with lots of old friends, but I've made some really good new friends along the way, and I've been helped by so many people along the way, half of whom don't even realise they've helped me.
Where did you start from and finish? Just a rough idea of the route.
I started in Shieldbridge. I walked through to Altbeath, and then over various hills to Fort Augustus, over the Corriaric, round the back to Newtonmore, through Kingussie, over to Glenfeshie, over the Cairngorm Plateau to Braemar, and then over Jocks Roads and various other hills to Clover, and then a long, long day out to Brechin, and then finally to Montrose.
You're a solo walker, is that correct?
Yes, I am. Yes, I always start by myself, but now I'm doing it for my fourth time, I know quite a few people along the way, and I did plan to meet up with a couple of friends along the way, and I walked out with a friend from Braemar.
You say about it being a social trip. Have you sort of divided the camping with the luxurious accommodation and food equally, or has it been a bit hit and miss?
Yeah, it's been quite a mixture. I've had quite a few nights camping, particularly at the beginning. I've had more nights than usual in bothies, partly because of the weather and not wanting to have a wet tent in the morning. And then I have had a couple of nights of luxury towards the end, again because of the weather, and well, why pass somewhere with luxury when you can stop in it?
Excellent. And what's the camping been like? Has it been treating you well, the weather?
It's been cold at times, particularly on the first night when I got a tent that was new to me, and I thought, oh heck, this isn't working as well as my old tent, I'm frozen. And I woke up to find a really, really thick frost, and the tent was just rigid with ice. And actually I think it performs as well as my old tent. But I've been lucky that I seem to have picked a drier route than some people, so I've had good pitches.
Excellent. You were telling a story as we came in here earlier on about the chap that gave you some accommodation. Tell us the detail of that.
Well, we were having a very heavy day in because we'd waited for a friend who'd been ill at Clover, so we're probably a day behind most people. So a long day in, coming down a road with sore feet, and a guy stops on a racing bike and says, "Where are you stopping?" And we said, "Well, we don't know. We'll probably ask a farmhouse to if we can camp."
Where was this?
This was coming down between the Cattertons in towards Brechin, and we're about 4 or 5 miles from Brechin. And he said, "Well, I've got a large house in Brechin. It's only me and the wife, and we've got large lawns, and I've got plenty of wine," he said. So he stopped by us again and said, "Are you coming?" And we said, "Well, yes, if you really mean it." And when we got there, he'd cooked supper for us. We had rhubarb and custard for pudding. We had wine, damson, gin. And then he said, "Well, there's no point putting the tents up because I've got 2 spare bedrooms upstairs." And then in the morning, he proceeded, before they both went to work, to cook us porridge, toast and tea, and sent us on our way, which is just one of those things that can only happen on the challenge.
So you were pinching yourself all night long, I suppose?
I was. Every time I sort of looked at my mate Sue, I said, "Please pinch me, just, is this real?" And when I woke up in the morning, I still expected to be in the tent somewhere, and it was all a dream.
Just a quick kit question then. So best bit of kit, worst bit of kit?
Best bit of kit actually is my Go Light pack. I would say I'm very impressed by the fit. It does everything I want to, and for the weight I think it's an incredible piece of kit, except for the slightly floppy lid, but I'll forgive it that. My tent, I've got a laser light this year, and again that's another really good bit of kit, and my live jacket just saved me on that night in Altbeath. Worst bit of kit, I don't think I really have one. Most of my kit is sort of stuff I've kind of grown up with walking wise, and I don't think I have anything that I haven't used, which I suppose is a good thing.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question. Is there anything in the pack that you didn't use?
The only thing I think I haven't used is my mobile phone hand charger, which I still wouldn't be without, because one of my phone-in points was the top of a mountain and I could have been a bit stuck. But no, there's really nothing else I haven't used.
Excellent. And of course the final question being, you feel like doing it again next year?
If I could do it next year I would, but with a child in birthday in challenge season it'll have to be the year after.
The very slightly built Sue Oxley we met during the crossing a few times, usually when she was on the way up a Monroe. Now she was standing still. At last, I asked her to describe her route in more detail.
Well, this time I wanted to do a high-level route, because previous times I've tried to do high-level routes and I've been pushed off for one reason or another, and I was quite determined this time to do them. And I did an extra one right from the word go, so I thought, right, and I just got going and just kept going until the only 2 I didn't do were Ben Alder and the one beside it, because the weather was horrendous and I spent that day wading through rivers. And it took me so long to get to the bottom, I didn't have time to go up, basically. So
actually, how many Monroes did you do?
I did 15 Monroes and 3 Corbetts.
That's very impressive.
So Yeah, well, for me, it is. I don't normally do that many.
So you're a solo walker, but I understand you arranged to meet Ali and sort of do a bit of socialising as well.
Yeah, I solo walked to Braemar, and I didn't see anybody else on. I didn't walk with anybody else to that point. And then she and I did 4 more after that. We went over Jocks Road, and we did 2 on Jocks Road, and then we had a day off in Glen Clover waiting for Steve to catch us up because he'd been ill. So we had a day off and light rucksacks and did 2 more that day, 15 miles on our day off.
Well, you're a fairly slight built sort of person. What sort of weight were you carrying?
I've got it down to under 30 pounds, so I can't carry any more. So I've got... And this time, for the first time, I've actually sent myself 2 food parcels so I don't carry the whole lot. Because otherwise it's just by the time I get to like day 9 I'm finished, so I have to have a light pack.
So you were obviously camping, predominantly camping presumably, or were you bothying as well?
I did both, and I actually spent more time in bothies than I anticipated because the weather was so horrible really, and I got a wet tent a lot of the time, so I spent 2 nights more in bothies than I expected, and 1 night more in a hotel than I expected to dry the tent out.
Yeah. Oh, well, we have to, really, to dry the tent out.
Yes. So grass in the bath, but yeah.
And this is not your first crossing, though, is it?
It's number 8.
Number 8. So how do you reckon the weather's been this year? And I'm thinking about people who might be listening to this who are considering doing this for the first time, what they need to anticipate, because it's been quite a wide range of weathers over the years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, I found this one hard because I've been high, but on every day there's been a nice part of the day. I mean, I have got to the top of Munros and found it in a snowstorm, but an hour later it's cleared. There's just one day, the one I didn't do any Munros, when the water just came up and I couldn't stand up in the wind, let alone go up anything. And because it took so long to wade rivers, which I'm not very good at, that's the only one I didn't go up. But I think, you just have to anticipate the worst, and if you get better, then it's a bonus. Yeah, to be honest.
Have you found it? I mean, we found it a very, very cold wind this year.
Yes, a cold wind, and it's the wind that I think is the worst element. I mean, I can navigate through clouds, but you can't. It's too difficult to get through wind. You don't know, especially if it's gusting. It's quite hard work. So I found that hard.
So, just talking about kit for a moment. The question I'm asking everybody is: best bit of kit, worst bit of kit?
My Paramo trousers, best bit of kit, because when I waded through rivers up to thigh deep, if there was a dry period, they just dried, and they dry well on you. So, and you can also vent down the sides. So if you get hot legs, you can open the zip, and it's. I think that they were just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So.
Yeah. And the worst bit of kit, something that didn't work or you didn't really need?
I honestly say I didn't take anything I didn't need this time, because by now, if I'm taking something I don't need, then I'm not learning anything, am I? So I took the suntan cream, didn't need.
Yeah. Well, you have it though, just in case, don't you?
I do, yeah. Just a small amount, but I didn't need that at all.
And of course, the final question would be: are you coming again?
I want to do 10, and I would like to do my 10th crossing on the 30th anniversary. So I've got 2 more to do.
Steve Smith was one of several this year who suffered from some kind of mysterious stomach bug, which affected his original plans, almost from the day he started.
Lochel Hort, and the plan was to walk across a number of Corbetts, come down to Speen Bridge, walk down via Speen Bridge to Curragh, taking in a couple of Corbetts down there. From Curragh, go up to Delwynny via the Farah, staying at Cora Buffy, then to Braemar, and then out via Jocks Road and Clover.
Okay, I understand everything started well. I mean, the weathers were certainly good the first few days, but you started to have some problems. What happened to you?
When I was doing the Speen Bridge to Curragh bit, I started to feel a bit ill. I took in 1 Corbett out of the 2 on that route, but I stayed in the bovey on the way down. But I came down with sickness and diarrhoea, which is not much fun because that really came on bad in the tent. I was staying near Curragh Station, and it was a foul night, pouring rain, very windy. And normally, if you're walking across Scotland, you have to go and find a private place once every couple of days. In the space of about 12 hours, I needed to go 10 times, which is absolutely no fun at all. And there was the vomiting as well. And it was a really, really bad night. And I was camped next to Sue Oxley, and she said she just waked most of the night. And to quote her words, she said all she could hear was me hoiking up most of the night. And got up the next morning. We found we were on an island because the rained so heavily during the night. So we had to sort of like wade our way over off the island. Any purists listening, don't listen to this, but then we walked up the railway track because it was the only way out. Everywhere else was so flooded we had no choice. Got to Curragh station, and Sue went off into the mists and the wilds, and I got a train back to Fort William, where I laid up for 2 days, discovered Imodium, which is absolutely fantastic. Then
so you went for medical help then, medical assistance?
Yeah, well, really just self-help, really, just buying stuff, and also just eating non-dehydrated food, and actually being able to get food into me that stayed down. Come the Saturday morning, that was I arrived in Fort William on Thursday morning. Come the Saturday morning, I felt well enough to give it another crack, so I got the train back around to Curragh, setting off on the very footprints where I'd got on the train. And initially I didn't know which way to go, whether to actually road walk out via Kinloch, Rannoch, or go over my original planned route to Dalwhinnie. But what I'd realised is that suddenly I'd lost 2 days, so I was going to have to compress 6 days into 4, which meant things like the Farah and some other high ground was out, but there's some things you just can't avoid. And I was originally planning to get to Dalwhinnie in 2 days, but I had to do that in a day, which was tough going. Especially as I got stuck in peat bogs around Loch Pattock. Then I got to Dalwhinnie quite late in the evening, absolutely soaked, and they had a room for me. Well, they found a room for me because they took one look at me. And the day after that, I walked over to Ruatagun.
So what sort of distances are these, and how were you feeling at the time?
When I set off from Curragh, I kind of had the tail between my legs. I was weak, but I really just knew mentally, I had to try and kind of catch up. Distance-wise, I think that was about 35 kilometres, including getting a bit lost around Loch Pattock between Curragh and Dalwhinnie. Then the next day was Dalwhinnie over to Rhaeadr Bothy, and I think that was about 30 kilometres as well.
I mean, you must have been feeling fairly weak, really, with pushing yourself that hard.
Yeah, I mean, things what was starting to come on then was really, I'd got over the illness, so I was picking up from there, but really my feet started to really groan. I don't normally get blisters, but I started blistering up badly. When I got to Rhaeadr Bothy, I met another challenger who hadn't seen anybody all the way across. He started on the Monday, not the Friday, and I was the first challenger he'd seen. And we compared blisters, and I'd sort of this red slug, but I can only describe it on my heel, which looks pretty awful. So I sort of patched myself up, and it was so difficult to get going again next morning. But I made it to Braemar in one haul, which was I think it's about 37 kilometres, and that was really difficult. And the worst bit was getting to the Linn of Dee. Because when I got to Linn of Dee, I had a choice, because I could just walk round to Inverie Youth Hostel, but I knew, because I really wanted to meet up with Alison Ashton and Stu Oxley at Clover, so I to keep myself going, I pushed myself onto Braemar, got a room in Fife Arms Hotel, because I decided that if I'm walking all this way, I'm not going to camp, but I'm going to just, although I kept my tent with me, I wish to have a bit of luxury in the evenings. And so from Braemar, the next thing to do was, the only way I was going to catch up with Alison and Sue was to actually get over to Clover in a day from Braemar, and that was pretty hard, because firstly I had to get up to Loch Callata, which isn't too hard, but all the way up Jocks Road and all the way over Crow Craggies. But I must admit, I got to Crow Craggies, and I've been on my own for quite a few days, and I saw the sea from Crow Craggies, and I must admit there was tears in my eyes, because it was just so good to see the sea, because that's what you're aiming for. And so I set off from there to get down Glendole, and then it was a horrid road walk in pouring rain down Glendole to the Clover Hotel. And when I got to Clover Hotel, I told Sue and Alison probably my expected arrival time about 7 p.m, and I made it there for 7:15, and I got chastised for being 1/4 of an hour late. But no, actually I got the biggest hug I'd ever had, actually, from Alison, and then that was great. And then yesterday because they basically dropped a day behind to wait for me. And so yesterday we walked about 25-26 miles to get to Brecon, and I'm sure Alison or Sue probably told you this story as well, but we got stopped by a cyclist who offered us his house and his bedrooms and his meals and his breakfast and his wine and his gin, and it was absolutely fantastic. And when we left his house this morning, it was a huge amount set back, and we were walking down his very long driveway, having been sort of fed and housed totally for free. And we were sort of looking at each other and saying, did that really happen? Did we dream that? Did we really not just have dehydrated food in a tent? So that goes out, and really that's today. This is Thursday, and it's just been 10 miles of the coast, so it's actually reserving. It's been quite good, but my biggest problems, other than the illness, was my calf muscle and my feet were just in a right old mess, because I just walked more miles in a day than I've ever done in the whole of my life.
Yeah, you pushed yourself very hard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, did you know in the end, or guess what caused the problem in the first place?
I don't know. There's a few stories that are going around of people, a number of people on the challenge getting upset stomachs. There's also this sort of story about this E. coli thing in Scotland as well, but you think, well, so I don't know whether it actually got into the water. I got it from water, because obviously I just, like most people, drink from the burns. I tell you, since then I've been using purification tablets, haven't taken any risks, but I mean, I've been walking in Scotland since the 1980s, and I must have drunk gallons upon gallons of burn water. I've never had a problem. Or whether it's something I picked up I stayed in the Speenbridge Hotel, just possibly there was something there. You really just don't know. Or maybe some food I brought. I brought some dried food from the village shop in Great Bedwin, and dried fruits, and whether that needed a wash or something, I don't know.
Right, okay. But I guess the meeting up with Ali and Sue, that must have given you an emotional high, because without them sort of pushing you along, presumably from via text message, you would have sort of drifted off into despondency.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I really have to hand it to Sue and Alison, although I, on those 4 days to catch up after leaving Fort William again and getting the train back to Curragh, I did 80 miles to get to Clover in 4 days. All the time I was getting text messages from them. I knew they were waiting for me. And when Roger, I phoned Roger from Challenging Control, and he said, Alison and Sue are waiting for you. And it's just so nice, because if I was doing it on my own, your spirits drop and all that kind of thing. And when I got there, I was so pleased to see them, and I was very touched because they were so pleased to see me, and it was just so good.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I want to ask you about kit, because obviously the biggest thing that you're going to be talking about is water purification kit in the future, I'm sure. But that aside, has it put you off doing the challenge at all?
No, not at all. I mean, this is the third time I've done the challenge. So no, I mean, it's just one of those things. The whole point is that it's a challenge by definition of the word. And I ended up having a challenge within a challenge. But really, what it's about, I feel, is pitting your wits against problems. And I had a problem, and the solution is to get around it. Now, okay, I know people have to drop out if they've really twisted an ankle or they're injured. But I saw a window that I could still do it. I lost 2 days. And I got a phone call off Alison whilst I was in the hotel in Fort William. And she goes, it'll be long days, but you can do it. And she was absolutely right. And so yeah, it's about just keeping going. Because I heard last year somebody dropped out because they couldn't cross the river. And I just was a standard for a reason to drop out. I mean, obviously I don't think that kind of person's a challenger, and it's probably good that they dropped out. Because if you can't cross a river, well, fair enough, okay, you're not going to go and try and drown yourself, but you walk round. If it costs you a day, it costs you a day. You don't give up. And that's the point. And also, what I like about the challenge is you haven't got your creature comforts. All of a sudden, like what you take for granted at home, such as a toilet, you don't have. So therefore, it's a real victory if you can get to a toilet. And food, you just walk to the shop at home or get a takeaway, or you've got cupboards stocked full of food at home. Well, you don't have that. You actually, when you're doing the challenge, you have to have each bit of food all prepared out with you. And I think that's what I enjoy about it, is the fact it takes you back to an older style of living that I think perhaps we've all lost. And I think that's why it's kind of addictive, because it really does push you beyond your creature comforts.
And live back to basics, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just basic living, and it's down to you, because if you screw up, if you don't have the right bit of kit, you don't have the food, well, that's you out. You've got to make sure you've got the right kit. You can't leave it to chance.
In the next episode, as the evening wears on, we chat to several first-timers. Andy Howell from Birmingham, Gretchen Laborowitz from Baltimore in Washington, doing it at 19 with her grandparents, and Hein Hockenhuis from Holland. Join us then.
Hey, you're listening to One Man's podcast across Scotland, to be continued very soon.
Backpackinglight.co.uk.
Go lighter, go faster, go further.
To subscribe to our show, please follow the instructions on our website or search for us in the iTunes directory.
Thank you, and good night.
Oh, that was good.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorstation.co.uk.